On the phone with her.
I've got an Excel spreadsheet,
Like
so y'all can.
call this meeting to order. Our first order of business is to go into closed meeting. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussion the following under Section 2.23711. Discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. New River Valley Economic Development Alliance, Planning Commission, Planning District Commission. Also, consultation with legal counsel and briefings from staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provisions of legal advice by such counsel. That is lunarandbackcountry.com. Discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, and that would be the former Blacksburg Middle School. Do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
We're in closed meeting. Need a motion to go out of closed meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second to go out of closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye. Cheers.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Chair Brown?
It starts with D. It starts
Yeah,
with
P is
D.
B. Vice chair and chair, so, sometimes I call that chair too. The next order, did I say aye?
Yes, I
Okay, aye. Okay. The next order of business is our invocation, and this is a time where the board observes a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand. After our invocation, we will be led in the pledge by Mr. Meadows, our county administrator.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Well, next order of business is a presentation, and it's for several of our employees who are retiring. And we will recognize the following employees. And a lady who helped me quite a bit when I first got on the board several years ago, and who seemed like she knew if I needed this, she knew where to direct me to where to go and who to see and so forth, and sort of kept me calm. And that's Betty Page from the county administration with 35 years of service. And I think what we'll do as a board is that let's go down. And so when they come up, we can congratulate them individually, and then we'll take a group picture with the group of all that's here.
Read the rest of your names down there.
Yeah, we'll read the rest of the names now. They got the police, so I think on this one.
Then you can go ahead this way.
ABP. Thank you for your 35 years of service to the citizens of Montgomery County. You know, when you talked to me a little bit about retiring, I thought you trained us as staff probably well, because I thought the was crash when you left. But because you trained them real well, we're still surviving. But we do miss you, but we want you to enjoy your retirement. Okay? Congratulations. What we'll do is we'll call the individual back, and we'll get everybody up here at the same time, and we'll take a group picture. You see how he missed you, right? Captain Chandler. Harry Chandler from the Sheriff's Office. And, I know when I was just a rookie, starting out in law enforcement, Gary came to my kindergarten class and talked to me about careers in law enforcement.
You would lie, would you?
Gary, putting on to the side, we really appreciate the 32 years of service to the citizens of Montgomery County. All the time that
She always does.
when we passed, we may not have said thank you, but thank you was really in our hearts, because we made a lot of sacrifices, working shift work, and you get those calls of the man with the gun and so forth that you have to deal with. And law enforcement, a lot of people don't understand, it has a lot of hidden stress. And the stress can become cumulative over the years. But I'm glad that you're healthy and you can enjoy your golden years. Now, I'm going to tell you, you meet a lot of people in your golden years. I'm going to tell you, because I've been meeting a few. All of them got doctor in front of the name.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, sir. I don't think Billy Sarnes is with us tonight.
I don't know you've been here.
But
Well,
Billy worked in the sheriff's office, and he served 28 years with Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Now, he was
thank you.
in like preschool when Gary came to my kindergarten class. So Billy listened to him too. David Fournette from General Services. You know, a couple of guys might have went back to work without knowing us. Karen C. Martin from the library. She's probably somewhere checking out books. But we'll take a picture with you two, you come on up. Back to the front. Back to the front. And then, got to limit your speeches 2 minutes.
Mr. Chair, the thing I've noticed is both of them look like they're about 15 years younger than they did every time.
That has the way I'm acting. Yeah, we're on with you guys.
So I'll even stand up.
I think she was coming in. Yeah.
Yep, thank you. It's just sitting down and getting up.
Yeah.
No, I just fall right in the middle of some sort of thing.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a delegation, and it's I guess it's, we got it listed as Dialogue on Race, representatives with the Income Gap Employment Focus Group for Dialogue on Race will make a presentation on the Ban the Box campaign. And I say, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Meadows, Chair Brown, board members, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to come and speak to you tonight about this very important issue, banning the box. As you have received information beforehand so that we could make sure that you understand why we're here and the importance of giving folks an opportunity to be able to be gainfully employed and not have to automatically be rejected because of one little question. So the Income Gap Employment Group is part of the Dialogue on Race, the focus group that arose from the issues from the African American community as to what it feels like to be African American in this community. So tonight we will give you our presentation and ask the question, and that is that you do ban the box here in Montgomery County. So I have with me tonight Dr. Jim Dubinsky and colleague Robert Fowle, who will explain to you how this has impacted his life. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Dubinsky, and I'm a faculty member at Virginia Tech, and I'm part of the issue group on income and income gap and employment. We've been working on the Dialogue on Race now for 5 years here in Montgomery County. And tonight, my goal is to walk you through the reasons why we recommend that our county take an important step to address a deep-seated inequity in hiring practice that not only discriminates against minorities, particularly African Americans, but also does long-term damage to our community through lost income and tax revenue. That issue is called, as Penny described, Ban the Box. It is part of a long-term movement to create equitable hiring practices across the country. As you can see on this slide, the logic behind the name is simple. It describes the elimination of a checkbox on most, if not all, employment applications. Doing so does not eliminate any mention of criminal history, nor does it put employers at a disadvantage due to a lack of critical information about potential employees. All it does is push the finding of and discussion about that information to later in the hiring process when it might not be so inflammatory and prejudicial. You may ask, it's the first question most people ask, well, what about background checks? By eliminating the box on the employment application, you do not have to eliminate these checks. In fact, they are still often used, but not until after the interview has been conducted and the potential employee has had a chance to stand on his or her own other credentials and personal characteristics. Important to note is the fact that the increase in the use of background checks has led many scholars, particularly legal ones, to consider the issues associated with their use. One of the documents we submitted to you was an article about this issue, Title VII, written by a legal scholar in the Harvard Law Review this year that points out potential problems with their use or overuse. The process, how does it work? It's pretty simple. Regardless of when the background checks or if the background checks are part of the standard process, doing away with the box has potential upside, primarily for the applicant, but also for the employer, which we'll talk about. And as you see here on the slide, the applicant is able to explain, once that issue is raised, the nature of the crime, how long ago it was committed, when incarceration ended, and even more important, successful rehabilitation efforts and certifications. Then the employer actually is more able to adhere to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission guidelines. Key facts to consider. Shifting away from the individual applicant to the larger societal lens, it is important to know all of the facts. These facts about the number of our citizens in this country with conviction histories, almost 25%, the number of people released from prisons each year, and the likelihood of those individuals finding employment, or more so to the point, the likelihood of them not being employed because of the use of the box, are critical to a larger understanding of how this relatively small decision can have large and long-lasting repercussions for our individuals and our communities. As I mentioned, this issue isn't just about employment fairness. It is also about leveling the playing field for all of our citizens. We're not here to give you a presentation about the issues concerning profiling, arrests, imprisonments. One of our other issue groups has been taking this up and working with the county sheriff and the chiefs of police of our police forces in Montgomery County. But we need to present some facts about the ways in which race is a factor in this particular issue. As you can see in these statistics, a disproportionate number of African Americans are imprisoned in this country. In the U.S., 40% of the prison population is African American. What's surprising and even more distressing to us is that in Virginia that percentage is even higher, and you can see it's 60% in Virginia. This chart just adds another perspective on that inequality. The one point I want you to see at the very bottom is that 1 out of 9 black men between the ages of 20 and 34 are in our prisons. That is the primary age when families get started and most long-term employment starts. That's a critical statistic to be aware of, because once that process starts, it's hard to change the momentum. These are other important facts about economic costs to our communities and to our Commonwealth as a whole. What you can see in these bullet points is that many prisoners are released each year, but many employers, or as you can see here, most employers, are not open to hiring people with criminal records. And when individuals can't get hired, they are left with very few options, which leads to recidivism and often sending them back to prison. And the costs of imprisonment, as you can see, are over $25,000 per individual per year. The potential economic benefits, which I mentioned in the beginning, are pretty high. Putting 100 incarcerated people back to work would increase their lifetime earnings by $55 million. And these are people in that 20 to 34 age group. Increase income tax contributions by $1.9 million. Save nearly $2.5 million, as I mentioned, $25,000 times 100, by keeping them out of the criminal justice system. And there are resources at the local and national level, such as the National Reentry Resource Program, which are available to us in this county and to everyone else in the Commonwealth to help us. These are not pie-in-the-sky benefits. They are tangible, and they are easily realized, as I will show in the next slide, with a community not too far from here. There haven't been, I would say, I wish there were more, but there haven't been a lot of studies that document, and it's, you know, as someone who lives and breathes by data, I like to find data that's going to support your argument. There isn't a lot of evidence right now out there that documents the potential, but here's this very real study, which also I included the whole study in your packets from Durham, North Carolina. And this is a community that banned the box and started to hire community at their county and local levels, individuals with criminal records. And we can see some significant numbers on this slide. The hiring of individuals with those records increased nearly 7-fold in the 3 years between 2011 and 2014. But more important, no increase occurred in workplace crime in either the city or the county government. And no employee with a criminal record has been fired because of illegal activity. And that is the anecdotal evidence that you see across the country. But here in Durham, they actually documented it with a study. And the fact is that this isn't just happening in our cities, which you might imagine have a much higher percentage of African Americans than minorities. It's also an issue in rural areas as well. And so we looked at a rural area that's relatively similar in size and scope to our county. And you can see here that they are very interested in this work, and they're working to change it. And so their hiring policy, the county manager for human resources, and I'll read this out loud. We wanted to make sure we're diligent in considering applicants and that their qualifications are considered first and foremost. With this process, they get to the interview, and then they have the opportunity to explain any issues they've had in the past. But here's perhaps an impressive element here. In Virginia, these are the localities that have banned the box. Now, Virginia is not yet, I'll put it that way, it is not yet, there are people who are working to make it so. It is not yet one of the states that has banned the box statewide. 13 states have done so. But Virginia does have a bill that was brought up, and so it's something that I hope and actually pray will happen. But in one of the reports that you have, the National Employment Law Project report, which is about 65 pages long, but with each of the areas that has banned the box, they give you a little bit of a detail about it, so you can take as much time as you need after this meeting and really review that and see what's important. The other thing that you see here is that Roanoke is listed, and in that report that was just came out a month ago, Roanoke is in the process of going through this, and they passed it in November, and it will be effective in January of 2015. So our sister city to the northeast has passed this, and some of our other, Fredericksburg passed this recently this year, and Danville this year. So those are important to note. And this, as Penny said, is our request. We ask that you remove the box from the county's application where possible. And we understand there will be some jobs and some opportunities, particularly around school systems, where this won't be possible. We ask that you require any contractor or consultant hired by the county to follow this process. And we ask that you make a public statement and stand up for the members of our community who have been discriminated against in the past, and make sure that they have an equitable chance for hiring. And before I get to any questions, and Penny he'll come back up here for that. We'd like to have our colleague come up and tell a little story about how this has made a difference in his life.
Hello, board members. My name is Robert Fall. 20 years ago, I made a mistake, and I'm still paying for it. Luckily, 14 months ago, I finally got good employment for a company that didn't have the box on the application. But the previous years, so many jobs that I was just knew that I was a shoo-in for. Saw that box and just turned away. A large store here in the area wouldn't hire me to push pallets on third shift just because I was a convicted felon. And that'll crush you. You know, I mean, you just really just feel like you're back inside those walls, or you're being told what to do, when to do it, and it's a real bummer. I can honestly say, just finally working where I am now, and this they actually gave me a shot as a man, and not my past. You know, we're human. We make mistakes every day, and at some point, you know, just stop judging the man for his past. You know, and just give us an opportunity to, you know, explain what happened. And banning the box, I think, would give a lot of good people who are very sorry for what they did, you know, a shot to take care of their families, move forward, and get past it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I got just a few. I know this was coming up, so I called several other localities that already banned the box. And I talked to the HR departments and all. And they said when they took the box off the applications, people filled out applications, they waited a couple, 2-3 weeks, called them back. Well, how's the process going? And they asked their name. They said, well, you've been convicted before. We don't hire convicted people. So they're the ones that catch the slack. The only way this is going to work, and I got no problem with giving people a second chance, I really don't, for certain crimes. But the only way it's going to work if you do away with a policy that you will hire them. My concern is if you give these people false hope, is that helping them or hurting them?
Well, again, that's what we're asking you, to change your policy so that the box is not there, so that people are given the opportunity. So when they're called back and that question, just like you said, you're a convicted felon, you don't hire convicted felons, you know, that won't be an issue because you will give folks an opportunity to be employed. Now, as you said, you know, some crimes, we understand, just like with, you know, voter restoration, you know, non-violent felons, these are the folks who are being considered, you know, in the very first shot to get their voting rights back. Well, to give a person the right to vote, but you won't give them the opportunity to be employed because of a mistake. You know, as Robert said 20 years ago, Robert and I worked together, and let me tell you, Robert has one of the most undesirable jobs in that building, and he comes to work every day and he does that job and he loves it. This is a job that the company could not get people to stay in. It's a revolving door. They even had to upgrade the job to pay more money to try to get people to get this job. This man was given the opportunity, an opportunity he hadn't had before, and he has, you know, I've never seen, I walk by him and he's just, you know, loving this job, but other people will have literally walked back out the door with that. But he understands this is an opportunity I didn't have to push pallets around quite frankly, that was at Walmart. And now the man has a decent living, benefits, and is able to take care of his family and hold his head up. So this is what we're asking you to do for other folks in the county.
I did have one question. I noticed, and it's understand 4 states have banned the box for the state, but not for private employers.
Right.
I noticed on there that you said that that you would be asking us to ban the box for contractors, I guess, who deal with the county. I personally don't have any problem with the county banning the box and giving that opportunity. But I do when you start telling other folks how they're going to run their businesses. Now, I think they ought to give people those opportunities. But I do have a problem, especially when the 4 states that have done it have not required private employers to follow suit. Can you help?
Well,
is this standard?
First, there are 13 states.
Is there 13?
Yeah, I didn't have any LP report. You can see a list of all of them. But I know you want.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I also want to state that I'm retired military, and when I went active duty in 1977, a lot of the young soldiers the Army was bringing in had problems with issues that they had in their past. And I worked with these young men and women in my career, and I know that if they had been thrown in jail and not been given a chance to come in the military, they might not have made anything out of their lives. So I've worked with people who have had serious problems in their past, and I've seen how they can overcome those problems and become not only productive members of our society, but productive people who are protecting our society. And so that's an important thing for you to think about. Many of you may not have had that opportunity, and so either to be in the military or to work with these people. So, and we're not, so that's an important thing for you to know. Now, secondly, we're not making it either. We're making it either or. We'd like you to do both because we think it would be important for the county to make the kind of statement that people we're going to hire, companies we're going to hire to come in here are going to be willing to follow the same kind of procedures that we endorse ourselves. However, at this point, we're willing to take the first step because I think that's an important step. But I think it makes an important statement to say this is a process that is good for business. It's good for our county. It's good for people who are going to come and work in our county. And whether or not you require it is up. Obviously, whatever you do is up to you. But we really believe it would be a powerfully positive statement, and you could be on the cutting edge of this issue, which is an issue that is gaining traction across the country. And as you can see, if you start to look at how in the last 3 years this has moved, and I guarantee you, with what's going on now dealing with law enforcement, this is going to become an even more important issue. Because you're going to be talking about how can we really demonstrate that we believe in equity. And one of the ways you can do it is to try to take away the stigma of your past.
And go ahead.
And I guess it's the libertarian in me saying don't tell private businesses what to do.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But the 13 states that have
13
banned,
states.
has any of them taken that step that you were asking us to take as far as requiring private employers who deal with the state to ban the box?
I don't think so, but I'll check on that and send an email to verify.
Thank you.
And like Jim said, let's be the lead here. You know me. I'm not always about following what other folks do. Let's do something different and then let them follow us. So on my job, when contractors come into that plant, they're held accountable to all the rules and safety, everything when they walk in that building. When we hire subcontractors and consultants to come into our county, sometimes we hope that they will hire folks who live here in the county too. So just like you would give folks here in the county the opportunity to work for you, have these folks give them the same opportunity to have them work for them too. Don't always be the tail of the dog, be the head of the dog and make that first move. This is what I know that you guys can really do, because you've done some really made some really hard decisions here in this county. And I appreciate what you do. I wouldn't want to have to do some of them, but this is one I would do, okay? So I would hope that you really consider, all of our recommendations, because it is a powerful move. What's happening in our country right now is the tip of the iceberg of the way things are going to go. And as you can see with the inequities that have been happening in the judicial system throughout the years, there's going to have to be a balance there. And the only way that you balance that is through giving people opportunities who haven't had them before. And a lot of time it has been unjust.
Question.
I actually have a question for Mr. Meadows. Going back actually to Todd's point, is that what is the county hiring policy about people convicted of felonies? Do we consider them for employment currently?
As a general rule, we consider all applicants. It depends on the nature of the crime.
Okay. So there is that follow-up, right?
There is that follow-up.
There's that box, and then the next question would necessarily be, for what were you convicted in?
Yes.
But the data show, Mr. Gabriel, that when that box is on the form, it almost inevitably, 86% of the time in most studies, precludes people from ever getting an opportunity to get to the point where they're asked that question about what it was that they're convicted for. And it's not a question of saying we're not willing to hire or we won't hire. It's such a stigma. If you check that box, it's almost inevitable that you won't be hired. And you already heard our colleague talk about how it was almost impossible to get a job until he found a company that would let him get past that box and start to talk about what he had to give them. And once they start to see people for who they are, they start to realize that you're not just that past mistake, you're something else. You have a lot to offer. And when you figure that the statistics shows 25% of our country, our citizens have some kind of criminal history. That's a significant number of people we're discriminating against and leaving out of the primary workforce and making it harder and harder for them. And when you look at the damage that can happen to our lower end of the economy and the possible crimes that are going to maybe come as a result of people not being able to find employment, it seems like a pretty easy step to take to at least make employment more accessible. And that's all we're asking.
And not to mention the folks, and I think Robert mentioned that too. At some point, you get an application, you see the box, you don't even bother filling it out.
That's true.
Because you've been rejected so many times, why try again?
I absolutely agree, and I was just trying to clarify our policy for.
But I want to make sure that as an opportunity.
No, that was fine. I'm curious too. Is that your statistics here are statewide and national? Do you have any statistics about within the county?
I can provide those statistics to you. I'll send them to you via email, and you can share them with your colleagues.
I mean,
Warnie Reed gave me those statistics, but they came after I provided them.
And I would guess that the vast majority of felony convictions, at least in Montgomery County residents, are drug-related, probably, so they're non-violent.
Right. And that's the case across the U.S. Is the majority of these convictions are drug-related.
Yeah. And we have a policy in place, right, for drug testing, regular drug testing. So, yeah.
That's a really good point to raise. Thank you.
Well, if we voted to take the box off, 3 months ago, I got a DUI. Do you honestly think if I filled out an application, the county should hire me to drive one of their trucks? If I was convicted 3 months ago for DUI? What I'm saying, if that box is there, I could check it.
But the box wouldn't pick up on DUI is a misdemeanor conviction.
Well,
the only way it would get to a felony is if it's a third or subsequent offense.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
To get to that point,
third moment,
I'm pretty sure that you're not going to get hired. But you aren't going to check that box. But we are doing criminal background checks on every hire. So it's going to come up that you've got 3 DUIs. And if Craig hires you to drive a truck, we're going to have to be at the truck with Craig.
That'll be a long closed session.
Right, Dad.
However, there might be an opportunity for you to do some other kind of work that wouldn't involve driving if you had a DUI. And with that box on there, again, we're talking about apples and oranges here because we're not talking about a felony conviction in the first DUI, but by virtue of checking that box, you almost create an impossibility for you to get hired because of the perception and the standards that people are applying to hiring based upon statistics that go across our country for the last 20 years, and that's in some of the data I gave you. So, I mean, you almost eliminate the chance of even getting in front and saying, I had this happen to me. Could have been that you lost your mother that night. It could have been something that happened. I mean, there could be all kinds of mitigating circumstances you might be able to describe if you were given the opportunity to explain it. But most people are not given the opportunity, and 86% of employers do not want to even look at you if you check that box. And I think that's powerful evidence.
Yeah, and I think, if I could just add on to what they're saying, is that there's a big difference, right, between a DUI or even better, like a small drug possession charge when you're 18 and being, convicted child molester. But the box doesn't discriminate. It's the same thing. So that it allows you, bending the box allows you to get to that next stage and ask that next question without being prejudicial and thinking that everybody is a child molester, everybody's a murderer.
And I think that questioning, then you're going to have that criminal history. Were they honest with you in that interview? Did they tell you, hey, when I was 18, I had a possession of cocaine charge, or someone gave me a pain pill and I had that Oxycontin and I had that pill and I got ended up convicted of a felony. If they tell the employer that, and that happened 5 years ago, that tells you it's something. If they don't tell you about it, that tells you something. And so there's that communications during that interview process, and then you're going to follow up with that
Background check.
that criminal background check. To me, that's pretty important.
Well, I have a personal connection with that. There's a young man in our church who had been convicted on drug charges and it got into a felony situation, and he was incarcerated. Well, when he got out, he came to our church, and he still, because his parents were there, and he ended up teaching one of the adult Sunday school classes. But he came to me and asked me for a recommendation, and I was very impressed with the young man because he was a brilliant young man. And he came to me, and so I said, okay, I'll write about what I know about now, because I don't know about your past. But he was very honest with me, told me the whole story. And he said, but Ms. Perkins, I'm sure I won't get a job around here because I'm a convicted felon and I've served my time. I said, well, let's just see what we do. He was right. He didn't. As soon as everybody saw the box, he didn't. And so finally, and I just see where you said Roanoke changed their rules, he went to Roanoke to get a job. Now he works, and I believe it's in social services. He works with young people who are into the drug scene, and he acts as a counselor with them. He does a great job, and he has a wonderful job, and he makes money, and he's able to support himself. So he's one of those that every day and every Sunday when I see him come in, I think about the fact that he has now the opportunity to show people what he can do, and that he did make some big mistakes. In fact, we have a program where on the 5th Sunday of the month, if we have one, that we have various and sundry people who come during the Sunday school hour, and we have breakfast, but they tell us about their life stories and how they got back into where they are and what they went through as they changed their lifestyle and life patterns. And he did tell us, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the room, and we had lots of adults who knew that he had had trouble, but he never explained the whole thing. And I thought it took a great deal of courage for him to do that to all the people who were there. So I say, I don't know how every case goes, but I know personally that this particular case, if he had not had an opportunity, wherever it was, to have a job and to show that he was quite capable of what he was doing, then he would still be without a job and being very discouraged and being dependent on his parents again. So anyway, I just want to tell you, I've had that. I'm sorry it took a long time, but I have had a very close relationship with him ever since.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, but
Oh, that's a great story.
I'm sitting here while you're telling all this and saying, yes, I experienced that. Yes, that happened. So I thank you.
Mary?
Well, I mean, I know we're talking about felonies, but I can tell you that I know of people that have been convicted of misdemeanors and have been turned down for jobs.
Right.
So, and we're trying to make money for their family. But there seems to be a disconnect to me in our society when we say, okay, you did this, you're going to pay for it. Okay, you paid for it, now you're out. There's a big disconnect then about what do you do after you're out.
Right.
And it's not just with getting, it's everything. But to me, I mean, I agree with Chris. Like, the person comes in and they have the interview, they don't have to worry about the box part of it. They got an interview. All right, it's up to you in that interview to let everyone know about you. And that pretty much includes everything. And you know if you're going to interview and you're working for a company or whatever, you know if you should be telling the whole truth. You've gone through this process, you served your time, okay, you paid for your crime. So that's part of your life. But why should that prevent you from being given a chance to have a job? See, that's a big disconnect. Okay, so
Sure
then, let's say you don't tell it. And then the background check is run, as you know, background checks are run after you apply and have an interview. Then that's a whole nother issue that probably would have to be dealt with. But I don't see why it wouldn't be appropriate to ban the box. I mean, and to go ahead. Now, with what Chris said, I'm not sure. I hadn't thought past just, the county part of it, and Chris, you bring up a good point about, like, I can see what you're saying too, but yeah, I mean, there is a big disconnect. What I teach my children in school doesn't go with what we're doing here in real life. What do we teach them? We teach them, okay, you make a mistake, it's okay to make a mistake, but you take responsibility for it and you move on. What do I teach every day? Well, is that really what happens?
The current system makes it hard for that to happen.
Yeah.
It does.
It still can happen, but it's difficult, it's challenging. And I will look to see if I can find any statistics to answer that question about what other states have done. I'll get that information to you, and I'll get the information across.
Can you just send it to the whole board, just
We have a
VOS?
simple VOS.
Yeah.
I think it's number sign.
Number sign
Or
BOS.
supervisors.
Supervisors at Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll go to everybody.
I'll get that to you.
Couple of comments. Well, I would hope that we as employers would not hire a person on just an interview. I hope that we would call the references, we'd do a criminal background, we'd just do all the things that's appropriate in hiring someone. If somebody walks in the door and you don't have the box on and they say, well, yeah, I made a mistake 35 years ago, that you just hired that person. No, I think you have a lot of other steps that you have to take before you make a decision on this person. And to understand, I understand ban the box. All you want to fix it so is that as a former police chief, you used to hire a lot of people. You'd get in like 75 applicants for a job. First thing I do with that job, run criminal histories on all of them. The ones that had a crime or whatever, they was immediate eliminated. To reduce that number down, sometimes if it's a misdemeanor, nah, we don't need that person. So they never did get in front of you to say, hey, that, yeah, it was a misdemeanor, and it might have been a class 1 at that particular time, but it was pushed down to a 4. Just like felonies, and years ago, that was a felony to have this much pot, maybe a misdemeanor today. They getting so that we have people incarcerated for marijuana now that's serving long terms, that they're talking about making it like a ticket offense where you can get a little ticket and a fine. But it doesn't correct a wrong that was done, 25 or 30 years ago. I see it as getting a person to the interview and whatever the appropriate questions are that you asked. And is there anything about you that I need to, that this interview hadn't brought out that you need to tell me? Well, that's the time that you open the door for that person. Yes, in 1991, I was convicted of grand larceny, and it was, at one time, it was $99. You remember back that time? If you stole something, 99. Okay.
It's been $200 for the last 21 years.
It was $99 and down was a misdemeanor, and $100 and up was a felony. And then they changed it to keep it up with inflation, I guess.
Well,
And,
it's been 21 years since it went up from $200.
Yeah. Well, my memory goes way back.
Now, and it's been longer than 21 years. That's been as long as I've been
But I really understand what this is trying to accomplish. Now, we're working with workforce development on a project, and we already contacted the our regional jail and the regional jail in Dublin and some other places, is that spending some money and getting some people who are been released, getting them trained, getting them so they can function in society, even having internships with them somewhere that the workforce development will pay for their so-and-so to work them into a job. I meant to bring it with me tonight. It's a whole curriculum that we have set up that's going to cost quite a bit of money. But when you look at what little bit that it's going to cost versus what it's costing us to keep our people in a regional jail, I mean, it's we hold a record down there, and I think it was 237 last month or something like that. And if it's a way that we can work with some people and work them back into society, because it's almost like if you're convicted of a crime, you brand it for life. That's what Mary was saying, you brand it for life. And I think, well, when do you stop paying? Said if I was 18 and I done something and I'm on the other side of 60 and I applied for a job and they still held that against me because I was 18 when I done it, made the mistake. So I understand what you all are trying to do, and I applaud and support your efforts in it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving us this time.
And one other thing, back in the military, people would commit felonies, and Judge Garland Wilson says, you going to jail or you going to the military? And to keep them convicting them, they'd go in the military.
76 and 77, when I went in the Vietnam War, it wasn't easy to get young men and women in to join, and so we had a lot of that kind of situation.
Yeah. And then the military got selective.
Right.
They start running criminal history on them and things. If you got a problem on the streets, you'll be a problem in the Army. We don't want you, But Judge Wilson, I've seen a lot.
Again, I want to thank you all for this opportunity and hope that you will consider this, make it an agenda item, and move forward with helping the citizens of Montgomery County and folks who want to come to Montgomery County.
Well, before our presenters leave the podium, can I ask a question of the rest of the board? Is that could I make a suggestion that the county administrator bring us back something for our agenda for the next meeting, for the first meeting in January, to consider banning the box on county employment applications?
I just thought of one question that I'd like to have. What happens, I understand you get out and you have one problem, and what happens if you have a problem and 6 months later you have another problem, and 6 months after that you have another problem, and where does it stop?
Well, that's one of the things that we're saying this can affect. Sometimes folks have problem after problem because they can't find employment where they're able to feel like men and women again. to be able to support their families. So then they look to other things or other places where they shouldn't be. So that's part of that cycle that we're trying to break. Now, if we have someone who is just an habitual offender and that's the life that they're going to lead, then that's gonna show up. And an employer is not going to hire someone who is, sees a pattern like this. But there are more people than not who want to have a job, want to be able to support their families and hold their heads up and not constantly be chasing a job.
And I
at
agree.
McDonald's or
I
something.
agree everybody needs a chance.
Right.
Maybe 2 chances. But as the chances gets bigger, I think there's got to be some kind of a stop in there saying, hey, you got to slow down.
That's where you get rid of them.
Well, I absolutely agree with that.
But you've already heard, the system is in place. It's just a matter of when that stopgap hits. And it can happen in the interview, it can happen in the background check, it can happen in a lot of places. And this doesn't preclude any of those. All it does is give a little bit more of an entryway for people to walk through before they get stopped. And then they've got to stand up and be accountable. But at least they've had a chance to say, hey, look at what I've done since then. And let me explain why that happened and what it really was about. And that in many cases is enough to convince people to give them a chance to take a job. Now, if on the job they make a mistake and they go back to this isn't going to solve all society's problems, but it might help solve some individuals' problems and give us more people in the workforce and not have to keep them and pay for them in prison.
Right.
Gary, are you talking about criminal problems that keep happening?
Unless somebody's, if they have first one thing and then another.
Well, their criminal history is going to be long when they run a criminal check. If they're convicted of it, it will, just like he says, well, I had a problem this year. Yeah, but you keep on having problems because every 6, 8, 9 months.
That's the only thing that
Yeah. It would be long.
In the days of the computer stage, the NCIC reports, they've got, matter of fact, there's codes that have to be entered. The federal government keeps a database. You get, for $15, you can require somebody to go get their criminal background check and bring it back to you, and it runs $15. You get it, you can look at it, or that you can get their permission to run it. But it's going to pick up everything that you're talking about, Gary. And in this day and time, all of the states put into that. So it's going to pick up federal charges, state charges, everything. Even local charges, like violations. As long as it's a class 1 misdemeanor, it's going to show up even if you have violated town ordinance. It's a criminal offense.
And before we go, we have other committee members who've been working hard and diligent for the last 2 years with the Dialogue on Race, and other citizens who have come out to support us, and I'd just like for them to stand or raise their hand for you to see that it's just not the Jim and Penny show.
Wow.
So thank you so much.
Then thank you all for coming.
So, do we have consensus perhaps to have something on the
Consensus to
following
put
agenda?
something on for our next meeting in January?
Is that enough time for you to
Or should be.
get through that?
And I don't know
If you want to do like second meeting in January.
Well, that would be wonderful, but
Second meeting in January.
Okay, okay.
we'll definitely have it addressed in January. Yes.
Okay.
Craig, when you're coming up with that, do you mind having one that has exactly what you're asking for, and then perhaps one that doesn't require contractors? I guess we could easily strike that language, or if it was in a separate provision. Sure. It gives us something to think about.
Give options, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Before I move on to public hearings, I want to make a statement about, if I get to the right one. Okay, it's a public hearing. It was continued from the Planning Commission. It was a request that by Betty Robeson Payne, Armstrong Living Trust, and DC Shires Incorporated. This is a special use permit requested for McCoy Road and Creases Branch Road. That what I understand is that request for that special use permit has been withdrawn. So if you're here to speak on the public hearing, it's been withdrawn and you can go home or you can stay and enjoy the meeting or whatever.
There were quite a few folks at the planning commission meeting that were
Yeah,
there
I talked to them out there at petitions and all that good stuff. So just in case anybody was here tonight waiting for it, they can enjoy the rest of our meeting.
They can also speak if
Yeah.
they want to.
And then if they do want to speak, they can speak, you know. The public hearings tonight, the first one, let me make sure I'm right. Yep.
And Marty can check with me. I think they are allowed to make public comments.
Yeah, they are.
Even though it's
They are
withdrawn.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
somebody.
But there actually won't be a public hearing, but you
But
can.
they can, yeah,
Make public comments and public addresses.
Yeah.
There'll be no.
Yeah.
yeah. We've done that before.
The following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on November the 30th and December 6, 2014. Verbal with permanent pedestrian access easement, town of Christiansburg.
I'll handle that, Mr. Chair. As you know, state law requires localities to hold public hearings before they convey any property. And we've received a request from the town of Christiansburg. They would like a pedestrian access easement along, it's a small area along the old, what was known commonly as the former Karaji property that the county acquired near the new courthouse, and we bought that as part of the courthouse property. If you look at tab A in your packet, you will see the easement. And basically the easement is for the town to be able to put in and maintain a sidewalk or pedestrian access. It puts no obligations on the county to maintain that. It would be all on the town. And if there is no opposition, which we have not heard of, we have put the approval of the easement on the board's agenda for you to consider if that would be okay, just so that the town can get their easement and start doing what they need to for that downtown area. But if there's any questions, I can answer those.
Questions?
It's a small request.
Any questions or comments? We'll open it up to the public for public comment, if it's any public comment on this request here. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close the public comment period. And no other questions, we'll move on. Public hearing, special use permit, John A. Barr Jr. and Kelly Burdette. A request by John A. Barr and Kelly Burdette for an amendment to the special use permit on approximately 51.139 acres in an agriculture zoning district approved May 10, 2010 for kennel, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Board members, it's good to see you again, and I appreciate this opportunity to come before you this evening to present these special use permit requests. We want to give you a few maps here to kind of get your site informed here. We are in the northern part of the county along Craig Creek Road, and this is an aerial photograph with the subject property in mind here outlined in the yellow. You can see that they have a driveway in. This, if you can see the mouse moving, this is the house that they have built, quite a nice house. You'll see a photograph or two here in the next few slides. This is the existing kennel that they built after the special use permit was approved by you all a few years ago. And this little area, uh-oh, my mouse. There it is. This little area here that was cut out and excavated in the beginning, they are now wanting to build the second building, and that's why we're here to amend the special use permit, because the building is a little larger than the two buildings that were approved initially. So next we have here our zoning map. The site is shown in white, and the federal lands, the national forest that surrounds this piece of property, and is zoned Conservation C1. Our comprehensive plan map indicates that this piece of property lies within a large resource stewardship district as well. So in 2010, the special use permit was approved to allow 2 accessory structures for the kennel operations. Building 1, there you see at 3,600 square feet and 27 feet in height. These are larger than what we allow by right, and they come in for approval as well as the kennel itself required a special use permit. So building 2 with that special use permit was supposed to be at 1,680 square feet with 20 feet in height. So they had some financial issues to consider, and they constructed one 42 by 70 structure, which was 2,940 square feet for the kennel operations initially. Building 2 is now proposed at about 3,456 square feet. The sketches you have in your package indicates this is a Morton building, a barn-style construction. It's a beautiful structure. The 3-car garage will store equipment and materials for the family's personal use. The staff needs to let you know that we did not receive any comments or correspondence from adjoining property owners regarding this matter. So some photographs now. This is a photograph of the house that they have built. And just to the left part of the driveway there is this existing pad. They wish to build this structure. This is a photograph of the existing kennel, quite a nice kennel, and the dogs appear to be well maintained and not a problem. When I drove out there, they were interested to know who I was, but it's a beautiful facility and nice site. Quickly, here's a survey plat. This is Craig Creek Road and the driveway coming in. You can see it's a good distance off the main road. The house, the kennel here, and the proposed structure in this area. Quick rendition of the appearance of the building. You can see it's going to be a 3-bay garage. It's a fairly large building, but very much in keeping with the 57-plus acre property that they have. Okay, so the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on December 10th, and after hearing the staff report, we had a request for approval. Vote was 8-0. We had 1 person absent, and we had a few short conditions. Basically, I won't read all of that, but the condition number 3 is the one that needed to be changed to allow this larger building to be constructed for their personal use. And you can see that we changed the plat that it referred to an updated plat, and we changed the size of the building from 1,680 square feet to 3,600, and increased the height from 20 to 27 feet. The other conditions remain the same. And if you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer those, but the applicant, Mr. Barr, is here in the audience to answer any questions you might have as well.
The closest neighbor is really the shooting range, is that fair to say?
Yes, sir, I failed to mention that, but you're exactly right. You hear more noise from the shooting guns than you do the dogs when you drive out there. They're very well maintained. Those dogs are well taken care of, I believe.
Questions?
That doesn't by any chance fall into the gas pipeline, does it? That picture there a while ago looked like it was pretty close.
Well, we can ask the applicant, I guess.
You might want to ask the applicant then. I'm not sure
when
about
it comes
that.
up. Yeah.
There's a large AEP transmission line across bisects this property.
That's where the gas line's going.
Okay, so that may be it then.
Allegedly.
What? That may be it.
Allegedly, that's where the gas line's going.
Yes, right.
Questions? Any questions? More questions for Derek? Thank you. We'll open it up for public comment at this time, and even if the applicant want to come during that time to make some remarks. Anyone speaking at this public hearing, please do so at this time. Come to the mic. Seeing no one coming, would the applicant come forward, please?
it is.
And, now Gary, he's here if you want to ask him about that question.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question, I'm sorry.
I don't know that it really matters.
No.
It certainly doesn't
Doesn't hurt.
make any difference to me, but I was asking them if that property line was laying within the boundaries of where the pipeline is coming, say they're coming through anyhow.
Yeah, I haven't attended any meetings or anything, but they did actually, they came and asked to enter the property for survey purposes and all that, but I don't, you all probably know better than I do. Is that where it's going basically, or?
At least that's what they've told us so far, is it's
Closely.
mirroring the power line.
Yeah.
And there's a meeting on Thursday night, and is it at the Days Inn?
Days Inn.
In Blacksburg, that you might want to attend. It's an open house that they're required to do under FERC regulations. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this, but I do think that you ought to kind of get a rest of it and
Get informed?
if it's something that's going to cause you grief.
Yeah, I mean, I was open to let them survey the property. I haven't seen any plans or anything so far.
There is a map, I believe, on their site that's and it's mirroring.
On our site,
or
too.
on our site, excuse me. And so you could go to that. And
Last I heard that they were still considering like multiple spots, but that's not true anymore.
We don't know.
They're narrowing
They're
it
having
down.
an open house on Thursday, so we may have to get you some answers.
I'll probably go to that then.
Any comments you'd like to make, sir, regarding your request?
And she did a really good job of explaining it. Like, I mean, if you combine the original two buildings together, I mean, size-wise, that we're still only increasing it about, I think it was like 600 square feet. So it's just, the original building was, the one that we built was supposed to be smaller. We ended up building it bigger because of only building one. So, and now I'm just making my garage a little bigger because I've just acquired more stuff, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Could I ask my fellow members,
Oh, yeah.
does anyone have a problem maybe putting it this as a part of new business or as an addendum, since there's no one who spoke out against it?
Thumbs up.
Thank you.
I don't have a problem with it, but it seems like this has sort of become our policy that without it being a policy, so like maybe we ought to just, is this going to be our policy, or maybe that's something we need to talk about at the retreat or something?
I think sometimes, like the sidewalk issue, there's no opposition. Why should the town of Christiansburg have to wait 2 weeks on us to approve it? The little land things. There's some things, Mary, and I disagree with you, that some things we need to go on and move with, and other things we need to wait 2 or 3 weeks before we vote on if it's opposition.
I'm okay with it. I just want to know, like, if this is what we're going to do, that this is what we're going to do, and we know that we're going to do that. Like, from now on, if we get something in front of us and there's no opposition, does that mean that we always then vote on it unless there's some question we have to get cleared up that comes from the board member? I mean, I just think we should make it our policy one way or the other instead just like sometimes doing it. I don't know. That's just me.
I think it depends on whether a
confused why
member
we do that.
requests it or not, and whether it's in a member's district, or Chris is more privy, have more information to this one than we have by serving on the planning commission.
This is the second meeting I've gone through this
all right.
presentation.
So I'll leave it up for discussion, and if we want to put it on the thing for our retreat, that's fine with me, or whatever.
I'll reiterate what I've said several times now. I really have a problem doing this, and I understand that we're going to do it, and I'll vote for it. But if we're going to, I think what Mary's asking is, if this is going to be the policy, then why don't we just put on every agenda for any public hearing that approval of that special use permit, and then we can either vote it up or table it. And that way, if a citizen looks at the agenda online, then they know that there's a chance that might be approved, and so they might come out and have a say. And if they don't come out for the public hearing, then it's not a problem, right? But at least then we're being open and transparent about
I just
that. There is a possibility that we will pass this during that meeting.
And I understand that. Like I said, there was nobody at the planning commission meeting that spoke out in opposition of it. I think they're changing it 600 feet, but it's I guess I look at it as case by case. But there was something that I wanted, hey, look, we had, I'm not sure what that would be, but we needed the staff to research an issue. Then tabling it perhaps is one of those things, but to me, there's no need for us to delay things on certain issues, and this would be one of them. Sidewalk in Christiansburg is another. I mean, we want there to be a sidewalk next to the public safety building from the Rod Crouchy's old building to where it used to be to the floors.
I'm not disagreeing. I just want it on the agenda.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that that's not what we used to do. We always had a public hearing and we voted on it the next time, regardless if there was any kind of, citizen input or not. That was just sort of like the structure and the policy. And then it just seems like in the recent year or so, we've sort of changed it. I understand case by case, and I understand when things are needed, like the sidewalk, but I guess what I'm saying is what Matt's saying, like, if we're gonna do that, then let's be clear about it so the citizens know that we're doing it, and we're not just like doing it, well, sometimes we do it and sometimes we don't, or,
If there's a public hearing, all I think I'm suggesting is that if there's a public hearing on the agenda, then we put the ordinance approving that agenda item on the agenda.
Yeah.
And then we can either approve it, and then we don't have to do addenda, or then we can vote to table it if we need to research it more.
It would save us a well of a lot of time by doing it that way.
It would.
Is it easier for staff to do it that way?
We can, normally we've got the ordinance drafted.
Well, it's gotten to the point where when we know it's not an item that has any controversy, we
just
make sure we have everything ready just in case. So,
okay.
as is the case with this one, and the sidewalk one, we went ahead and put on the agenda.
We can be proactive and have those on the agenda, and then, as you said earlier, if the board has a question or whatnot, you can always table it to the next meeting. We're more than happy to do whatever the consensus is.
And then we would be consistent and people would know what we were doing.
Now, there could be situations where we wouldn't, and we could put that in the policy. It's really been custom with the policy. I don't think we have anything written, but there's certain circumstances, it hasn't been lately, but if there's an item at the planning commission, because you remember when we advertise, we set those dates ahead of time. It still might be at the planning commission, and so when the board holds their public hearing, then what we do in those cases, if it's still at the commission level, is we continue the public hearing to another meeting, and then we wait for stuff from the commission to consider in addition to what we're doing.
Yeah, we've done that before.
So in that case, it wouldn't be on the, and it couldn't be on the, really, legally it shouldn't be.
But you could stipulate that with whatever we were looking at.
Yeah. It's not hard to figure out. It's not too often that happens.
Okay. You know how us teachers are. We have to know like our rules and guidelines.
Well, whatever the consensus of this board is, we'll direct our county staff to.
We'll do whatever you'd like us to do.
No, we can vote on it tonight. That's fine.
You good with it? Okay.
That and the sidewalk. I just want to get it cleared for next time.
Now, getting back to Chris's question, are we good to vote on this tonight? Okay. Don't want to leave nothing hanging out there. Rezoning special use permit for NRVP and PLLC properties. Okay. That's kind of long.
Since you usually read it, I don't have all that on the screen, but anyway, this request is to rezone 0.473 acres to general business and a special use permit to allow use of existing buildings to be used as a recycling facility. The address is at 3431 Radford Road. The total acreage involved in this special use permit request would be 4.442 acres, zoned general business, GB, and agricultural A1 currently. It's in the Reiner Magisterial District, the village expansion in the comprehensive plan, and mixed use, medium density residential in the Plum Creek Village Plan. So our vicinity map again cites this one in the western part of the county on Radford Road, Route 11. Now this one is complicated to try to see it, but It seems like everything on the picture is in yellow, but in this area here, we have all these properties involved. This is the aerial photograph. For those of you who might recognize this, this is the old Thompson Chrysler dealership location. This is our zoning map, and everything in the orange color is zone general business. As you see, this site is also in the general business district. It's this piece of property here that is zoned agricultural A1, and a portion of that, I'll show you in the next drawing, is requested to be rezoned to complement the request. So our comprehensive plan map, if you see the purple there, in the village plan we have identified this area for mixed use in the Plum Creek Village. Most of this property is in that mixed use area. A couple of photographs here for you. A view of the car sales facility here is a proposed recycling facility on Route 11, Radford Road. Another little shot here of if you can see these two metal buildings here, this one is very close to the dealership. There's a street, Gant Drive, runs between these two buildings. It's this bigger garage that you'll hear us talking about later that the applicant plans to repair company vehicles there. And so this is a photograph I wanted to give you to the rear of the building. There is a steep change in elevation here, and also he's had to do some severe repairs on the roof and the siding. It was getting in pretty bad shape. So he owns the property, and he's been making some repairs to it already, even before asking you for the special use permit. This view is from Gant Drive. And here's another shot from Testerman Drive, Route 792, looking toward Route 11, Radford Road down this way. You see there a blue fence that's been installed when the applicant first purchased the property to try to maintain some control of what might be happening down on this nice big flat property on Saturday night or whatever. Again, here is the building that will be used for the recycling facility. Closer view, this recycling facility will have a proposed loading dock right here in the rear, and then there will be a couple of doors added to this side of the building to allow folks to enter in to the building to unload and deal with the recyclables. So we want to talk about some impacts tonight. You know, we have 3 listed here, maybe some others, but relocation of the recycling facility from 2684 Radford Road, which is just a little back toward the town of Christiansburg. This applicant has an existing recycling facility that's been doing very well. With this request, we would they have agreed to abandon the current special use permit that's in place at that original facility if this special use permit is approved. So impact number 2 is we will see some very much improved appearance at this facility, 3431 Radford Road. He's begun that process already and intends to do some more changing to make the front of the building look much nicer as well. Number 3 would be safer access for his customers. With the recycling that's occurring there now, you know, his facility is right on the road and it's very steep behind, so there's no way really to get along. If there's a long line of customers waiting, they're basically out in the VDOT right away trying to wait to get into his site. So we'll talk about some of that as we go through. We dealt with transportation and traffic on the site. There will be an improvement of 1 existing entrance along Radford Road. There'll be a closing of possibly 3 other entrances from this site. Also, VDOT was on board with this, and they indicate there's a spacing exception required for the Route 11 entrance and a corner clearance exceptions required on the Gant Drive entrances. There'll be one into this larger site and then one into the garage site as well. So as we talk about infrastructure, the site is currently served by county PSA water and sewer. Waste disposal will have to meet EPA and OSHA regulations. He's telling me as the same process is occurring down the street, there's no processing of the recyclables on this site. And, so no requirement of water or discharging of waste materials will occur here. No direct impact that we could see upon the school system. Noise would be a concern from a site like this. The application's quoted, no noise emanating from the site. The recyclables will be delivered inside that big building, unloaded there. The sorting goes on inside, and no processing occurring there. So the only issue that we have was I asked about compaction of the materials, and they indicate to me clearly that should produce no additional noise from what the site previously has known. Light. There will be several changes affecting the lighting. They're planning to remove several of the existing display lights. That will reduce lighting glare at this site. What's left there will be downward directed LED lighting, and the business hours will be Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 6, and there will be little noise or light impact outside this time. So other items would be that metal garage I showed you will be used at 1535 Gant Drive will be used to service his company vehicles. No service to public vehicles will be done here. No impacts expected on groundwater, soils, and the environment. Fencing, buffer yards, and landscaping will be provided. You see that on the drawings that were provided in your packet. I'll show those in just a moment. Comprehensive plan. The site, as I stated just a few minutes ago, is designated as village expansion and mixed use in the Plum Creek Village Plan. The approval seems to be in conformance with the comp plan. The mixed use does encourage both residential and non-residential development along this area. The plan supports commercial use along these existing major transportation corridors, and Route 11 certainly complies with that requirement. So the applicant is requesting approval of the special use permit to allow location of its existing recycling facility. If approved, here's what's going to happen. We're going to ask for a boundary line adjustment plat to be submitted to the county to combine all those lots into 2 parcels for the business use. And the proposed use should not have an increased impact upon our utilities, our infrastructure, and the surrounding properties other than that, beyond what the dealership had. So staff received 1 phone call in opposition to this, and that was on Friday afternoon. Lady called. I did not speak with her, but she called and made a long statement to the staff and then hung up without really giving a name or contact information or anything like that. We had 2 other calls simply inquiring about the details of the application, and once that was given, no other comments were made. So this is the Exhibit 7A that's provided in your packet. I'll quickly go over this. If you can tell here, these lots will all be combined with a portion of this lot here. That's the portion in the green that needs to be rezoned, and we'd like to make 1 lot out of this whole piece of property. And then over here across Gant Drive, we put these 2 lots together. You see there's a property line going right through the middle of the garage. Put those together as parcel 2. That's 1.235 acres. This larger lot would be 3.207. And what happens here, there would be a boundary line adjustment, and this property would remain in the agricultural zoning district and be shrunk down just to a little above an acre, and that's the legal limit for A1 lots. You received a little table in your packet. I tried to identify all the different buildings and the uses of each on the 3 parcels. Parcel 1 here has 4 structures. I've given you the uses of all 4 and the area of each building and the approximate height. Same thing for parcel 2 is that 1 garage for repair of his vehicles. And then parcel 3 is the remainder of that agricultural zone. It will remain A1 and we'll relocate that manufactured home off of that piece of property onto the remaining parcel. This last map shows you what we're going to end up with, we hope. Their concept would be to install the buffer yards in the green shown around here. That is a 20-foot buffer yard. It's a type 4 buffer in the zoning ordinance. We don't give all the details of that right now because there'll be a site plan required. If you approve the special use permit, then they'll come in and designate what types of trees, the spacing in that, and the shrubs that go in here. The rear buffer yards are identified in this blue, and that's required to be a 25-foot buffer yard as well, and it requires a fence on the rear as well. So on December 10th, the commission met and conducted a public hearing and recommended approval of the special use permit by a vote of 7-0. We had 1 commissioner absent. Mr. Kroll abstained for conflict reasons. And there are 15 conditions to this approval. Unless you want me to, I won't take your time to read through all those. You have those in your packet. And if there's any you wish to discuss while I'm here, I'll be glad to go over those with you or answer any other questions you might have. The applicant is here along with his attorney, Kendall Clay, and can respond to specific questions as well.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Derry? Okay, Mr. Creed?
A couple of things.
Yes, sir.
How many times has this property flooded in the last
10 years?
10 years?
I've only been here just short of 8. I wasn't made aware of any flooding, but now there may be some.
Clean water, right? That's the old car lot, right?
Yes, sir. Thompson Chrysler.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing is, what types of materials are going to be recycled?
It's basically metals.
Metal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they're not going to go anywhere. Suddenly, the flood water doesn't seem quite so.
There you go.
Any other
questions?
Yeah, just one quick
Yes,
one.
yes, sir.
I know you said that you didn't talk to this lady, but she was called and made some kind of statement and that she was opposed to it. But did she give any specific reason why she was in opposition of this request? Or just, she was just opposed to it?
She was just opposed. She was concerned about the stream and people putting things in the stream. She did not say who, but was very concerned about the stream. So I didn't get a chance to talk with her. I found it difficult to imagine how the metals could get there. I mean, it would be difficult to do. And, you know, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to speak with her and explain some of that. But she didn't leave a phone number either.
Well, questions? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We'll open it up for public comment at this time. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward and state your name and address and direct all your comments to the board. And you have 5 minutes.
Brenda Jean Tyler. I live on Gant Drive, and we're just heard about the traffic flow.
Ma'am, speak into the microphone if you don't mind, so everybody
We
can.
saw the visual
Okay, thank you.
of the proposed plan, but we don't know the traffic flow because Gant Drive is a pretty narrow passageway, and we're just wondering if traffic on Gant Drive is going to increase or if it's going to be Route 11. We would know the answer to that.
Okay. Probably, I think the applicant is here, or did they have some kind of VDOT. Okay. Regarding the traffic on Gant Drive.
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate for me to respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I can't anticipate that it would be significant additional traffic on Gant Drive. The facility that will be accessed off Gant Drive would be used solely for repair of company-owned vehicles.
Can I get your map back up with that help, Mr. Clay?
Yeah.
You can stay right here. Which one is best? This one?
Either one, operate the arrow for me too, if you would, please.
Yes, sir.
The area that would have the garage, it would be accessed off Gant Drive, will only work on company-owned vehicles, which is a very small number of vehicles. Will not be used by customers.
And did you ask for various?
Could you speak into the mic?
They said something about requesting a variance in the corner, something which implies that the corner size is going to be smaller than what's normally allowed, or?
The spacing requirements do not meet VDOT's current conditions. Back in 2009, they changed their spacing requirements for all major roads, even some of these minor roads. So this is an existing entrance that would just require an exception to that. They have reviewed it. They have not really identified any issues with it, and we felt like that it was going to be much less traffic than was generated by the site when it was an automobile sales lot. So to help you understand, it may not be real clear right here, but the major traffic for the recycling customers, they will be coming in from Route 11, about in the center of the lot here somewhere, wherever that existing entrance is, and we'll be coming around here and queuing on this large area here to get them off of Route 11, and they will come directly in. So that customer traffic should not impact really on Gant or Testerman.
Where do they exit?
They'll exit back right out to the center of the lot there, to back to Route 11.
Okay. That's what we were wondering, how they get in and how they get out.
Yes, ma'am.
If they're going from Gant Drive, which doesn't sound like.
About the only thing that should be on Gant Drive is the access of the company vehicles right to this garage right here. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are there any questions that I can?
He needs to do his name and address.
No, wait a minute. Let's, in case he has a question that you're responding to from the applicant, let them come first, and then you come afterwards. And sir, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ray Al-Magloum. I'm her spouse. I live on Gant Drive. I have two questions. One, I understand that the company applied for high voltage. What was the, this line, and what is the purpose for that? And the other thing is the pattern of the trucks. I'm not concerned about the smaller cars as much as the trucks that would come and load the recycled material. Are they entering and exiting also from Radford Road, or there's going to be like entry into the building from one side and exiting the building from the other side and make like a loop? This is my main concern.
Okay. You catch us two questions.
Help me with the first question. Restate if you would, please.
High voltage line.
High voltage line. And then before you get started, would you state your name for the record and stuff? And
I'm Kendall Clay. I'm an attorney. I've been for a long time.
Right.
Kendall, do you remember when the grand larceny was $99? I was just checking.
No, Mr. petty larceny was $99 and less, and it was $100 made it grand larceny. And,
Right.
and
I would not disagree with your chair.
Yeah.
I told it that way.
There was not a request for a high voltage line. There was a request for three-phase current, and that is more economical. It is required for some of the compacting machinery that would be located in the facility. The other question,
Trucks.
Are they going to loop through?
all right, and help me with, the tractor trailers would come in the same route that the customers would, and if you'll recall in Derry's presentation, there is a loading dock behind the building. That is where the outgoing material
To be right here.
would be loaded, and the trucks taking material out would follow the same pattern as customers bringing material to the site.
So they will enter and exit from this area here. There's a existing entrance already that will be improved.
Yes.
And all the customer traffic and the tractor trailer traffic, which will appear once in a while to get a full load, will enter and exit there. Because that makes the spacing requirements much better.
Okay. Are there any other speakers in the audience who'd like to speak or have a question on this request? Seeing none, we close that public hearing. The next one, number 4, was hey, Marty?
Yes.
It was withdrawn, but if it's anybody here who wants to speak on it, can speak, right?
Yep.
Okay. There's a special use permit that was requested, which for a rezoning request on a contractor storage yard at McCoy Road and Keester's Branch Road, which has been withdrawn. But if it's anyone here who would like to speak to the board on this hearing, they can do so because it's been withdrawn. Seeing none, we'll just close that public hearing and move right on to public addresses. We do have one signed up, Mr. David Sisson. Would you come forward? And you have 5 minutes and direct all your comments to the board and state your name and address.
My name is Dave Sisson. I live at 1720 Big Spring Drive in Elliston. And I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen of the board for giving me the opportunity to speak before you tonight. I volunteer as the head baseball coach at Day Spring Christian Academy in Blacksburg. And I'm here tonight representing the school at the request of my supervisor, Gary Creed. I'm a resident of Elliston, as I mentioned, and I grew up in the area many years ago. And like Supervisor Creed, I played baseball at Shawsville High School several years after he did, though. The reason I'm here tonight is to ask the board to permit our school to once again use the baseball facilities at Shawsville Middle School. The field had been used for many years by the high school before Eastern Montgomery High School was built. At that time I was coaching at Eastmont. We used the field before moving to the new location in 2008. The field at the middle school is a beautiful location. I think at one time there was they were going to tear it down before Mr. Creed and the school board members down there got involved with this. Our desire is to make the field one of the better fields in the county. We have already cleared out all the brush and have kept the field mowed since the school district stopped using the field this summer. Many of the people in the community have commented that they appreciate the condition of the field since we started using it 3 years ago. We do plan to implement some of the following improvements as time and finances permit. Number 1, to add an outfield warning track like we did when I was coaching at Eastmont to warn the players they are approaching the outfield fence. Number 2, to add fence caps around the field to prevent injuries as well. Number 3, to paint the dugouts. Number 4, to repair the scoreboard. Number 5, to landscape the hillside between the field and Route 460. And here's the big one. Finally, if funds become available, we would like to add lights to the field. I know the lights would be an enormous project. However, our goal is our goal in the future. We are asking the board to allow us to use the facilities for at least 5 years each spring from March 1st to May 15th. We would be using the field on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and occasionally on Saturday mornings. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you this evening. I'd be glad to answer any questions that the members may have.
I guess it's.
I think, David, it would be, if I may, it would be important to tell them how long each day when you're practicing.
Well, sometimes we'll have games, those will last longer. We practice from 4 to 6. So even with Parks and Recs, usually they practice after that because most Parks and Recs practices are after, but no one's used that field. They didn't use it last year. The year before, there were some summer teams that came and used it, but there was no conflict. No one was using it at the same time we were. They were using it during the summer. And our season ends around the 15th of May.
So you're just basically asking for priority for these time periods? For priority of it?
Well, yes, I'm using it for that, but also to commit, because we want to do a lot of work. We've gotten parents that volunteered. We've gotten companies, even we have a company that's going to volunteer if we do raise the funds to put lights there, who will volunteer the labor. But we have some companies that volunteer to provide the paint and things like that. So it'll be the work that we'll be doing. Coaches and I would be doing, and the parents. All that would be done by us. So it would be no.
Sorry, could I make a suggestion that perhaps we add this to a work session agenda item sometime in the future?
We discussed with the chair and vice chair last week about we've had work sessions before the PSA meetings in the past, and maybe having a work session at the first January meeting before the PSA to talk about this issue, and then also to continue the discussion of the larger issue of the use of the Shawsville Middle School fields.
Because this is the ball field we found out we owned.
This is the one that's adjacent.
But it just seems like this isn't the appropriate venue to have this conversation, so I'm just wondering if we could get some more information together and then actually have a holistic conversation rather than this.
I'd like to know where, if you'll situate it for me.
It's the field where the old high school used to use for about 20-some years.
Is that down the Old Town Road?
Yes.
Down
It's right at the
where you're getting ready to curve?
It's where the state highway department used to have their trucks and stuff.
It's right where you get ready to curve, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I was just having difficulty placing it in my mind, but I've got it now. Yeah.
So it's right over the football field.
Right.
But I just thought it would be good if you come and express, and everybody knows that there is somebody out here willing to mow the grass, keep it clean, and make it better than what it's had in a long while.
And now Parks and Rec use that field for some games too? Outside of what he's...
They haven't used that.
They haven't.
Because that's 90 feet bases. The Parks and Recs are usually the 60 feet bases.
Okay. Are you familiar with other teams using the field?
Nobody used it this past year.
Nobody, just you all?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And you're going to do this, and I'm looking at March 1 to May 15th. Anything outside of that window, do you do anything else with it?
We wouldn't, because the school is out, in June, but the way the schedules are set up, we have to be finished by the 15th of May, so we have our playoffs and then state tournaments by that time. So we don't use it very long, but
that's something like Mr. Meadows said, something that we probably need to discuss in more detail. I think, what's the first Monday we got?
You said the work session, because obviously there's also, and I think I talked with the chair about
this would be
along with the additional Shawsville properties that have been offered to us by the schools, But
Be the fifth,
they asked
is
us
that
to
the-
keep a reservation on some of the
Is
surrounding
this-
property
no,
and football fields in
having
case
work session
of
Friday,
they needed it for evacuation
5th
purposes.
of January.
And so perhaps we could talk about all those things at the same time during the work session.
Yeah, well, we were looking at maybe having a work session prior to PSA meeting on January 5th. If we feel that if we start at 6 to 7, the hour would be enough time to deal with you're talking about the elementary school and this field too, right?
We're going to talk about the entire
Okay.
Eastern Montgomery.
I'll take the 5th.
Is an hour sufficient? And so we could, okay, we can set a work session for the board to discuss this item in greater detail on the 5th of January prior to the PSA meeting.
Now, the big thing is that he needs to know something sometime within the next week, 2, 3, 4, whatever, where he can get started on things that needs to be done in the springtime.
Well, we could talk about it in work session and maybe vote on it the following week, on the 12th, if we were able to reach an agreement.
And the work session on the 5th will be open to the public. You'll be welcome to come and sit in. I mean, you know.
Okay. Absolutely.
And we usually have them in this room across the hall over here.
And can I ask
6 o'clock?
just one more question of him? Are you coming on behalf of Dayspring Christian Academy? Are you because?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, obviously, I volunteer my time, but I've discussed this with the principal and the athletic director, who's one and the same about this.
So if we were enter into a contract, it would be with Dayspring Christian,
sure. Yes, sir.
Christian Academy? Okay.
Could we maybe have documentation to that effect before the next meeting?
Would probably, I guess, a letter to him from Dave Springs, would that be sufficient?
Can I make a suggestion? Because we've got a couple of things we need to talk about in that work session on the 5th. I'd like to suggest that we need to have a general conversation with the board about all of it and then be able to reach out. I mean, we've got your contact information. I know Gary does as well, but I think there needs to be a broader discussion because we're talking pieces here. Not trying to hold him up because I think you guys have done a great job on that field and if there's some opportunities, but we're talking about several different issues all in the Charlesville area with the current middle school properties and the elementary school property, and the staff needs a clear direction from the board as to how they want us to move forward. So,
One of the reasons I told him probably would do him good to be here was in order to get everybody to knowing his face and knowing what he represents, and you know, that's the only piece of the property we're going to talk about that we own.
that's true. Well, in the elementary school, yes.
So, you know, it hooks on to the football field up there, but it's over a bank and also, you know, that's just neither here nor there, but it's just somebody needs to use it. And it sounds like if he doesn't use it that long in the springtime, that our Parks and Rec could come right in behind that and already have a field ready to go and get a lot done with it.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Sisson? Thank you. Mr. Sisson. Now we open it up for, yes ma'am, I'm getting ready to ask whoever would like to address this. Please come forward and state your name and address.
There was a list. Oh, please don't pass me up.
No, we wouldn't do that.
So hi, and it's getting late, and I know we have so many things to do. My name is Rachel Kennedy. I live at 1320 Janelle Road, and I'm the person that emailed you about the bees. So I want to talk briefly about what I call the bees, me, and our food system. And I'm actually doing a conference presentation on this very soon. But in essence, there's 3 things I wanted to bring up tonight. One is that I have 2 small hives on my property that I've been told I have to move by the end of this month, and I cannot do that. I'll get back to that in a second. Additionally, I want to talk about what is agriculture exactly. I'll get back to that. And the third is, can we please, please, please bring our county into alignment so that we are part of this more sustainable food movement that's occurring? We're one of the only ones in the state that doesn't have a good policy. I'd love to leave here when I leave knowing that we've made some good changes. Okay, so in essence, I live on a piece of property that the county has told me is R2, even though it's extremely forested and rural. I would love to appeal this decision, but I do not have the $260. So I will move the bees. The issue is the letter came to me last week. Last week was the last week classes. I'm a PhD student. The people who I co-own bees with are either master's or PhD students. We are stressed to the max. No time to even brush our teeth. This week is exams, and then everybody's out of town. So we had an emergency meeting, and we all realized that we were all going to be out of town until around January 17th. So I'm in a dire situation. I've put a call out to the New River Valley Beekeeping Association, which I'm a member of, and I've asked for a plea if there's emergency land I can put these bees on. The problem is a large number of our beekeepers are on R2 property. They're in the same boat I am in. And I can't take my bees to their land either. And they don't want me to disclose their names to the county because they would be in the same situation. I'm in a bad place right now. So I've got to call out to a lot of people, but I just need more time. And so that's one of the reasons I needed to come before you to say, please give some leniency.
I got a question, though.
Okay, awesome. The second thing is, what is agriculture? The zoning of this county is not based in any sense of reality. It in fact says flowers, vegetable gardens, and fruit trees are agriculture. That means that a large percentage of our residents are against the zoning of this county. So we have provided to the staff legal definitions. The USDA says that agriculture is produced on a farm that raises $1,000 or more in product per year. So that's not the vast majority of us. It's definitely not me. We have provided also the VDAX definition of what agriculture is. Again, is tied to an economic status, which is not me. It's not the majority of our beekeepers. Additionally, we have provided legal cases where citizens have brought these things forward and most often have won because in case it's not agriculture. Agriculture is something a little different. And so I want to define agriculture in this county to include people who are doing things as a hobby. So agriculture is money or hobby is a hobby. I have 2 small hives. To me, it's part of my spiritual practice. It's part of my stress reduction. It's helping me understand how bees live so that one day, if I have money to buy land, I can do some agriculture. But right now, that's not what I'm doing. So I think it's just outdated and it needs to be addressed. And that leads me to the third piece, which is the policy as it stands at present. Do you guys know when it was written?
1997, I believe.
Yes, 1997. Very, very long ago. We really need to bring ourselves up into our current paradigm. And so I realize that staff is extremely limited and they have told us they do not have time to address this topic. They would like the citizens to raise it up. So we have the New River Valley Beekeeper Association wrote a letter in October saying they wanted to move forward, and there's been no discussion. Additionally, we have Dr. Fels, which is an alumni emeriti at Virginia Tech, who has written policy for other localities, including Roanoke, who has offered his time. We also have the state apiarist, who I've spoken to personally, and he's told me I'm what he calls a hobbyist. So they actually have that wording at the state level, who would be willing to help our county. And then I'm here, I'd be willing to help. We have the Catawba Sustainability Center that would be willing to help. So just because we have busy staff isn't a reason to ignore this topic. Now, what I would really like from you guys is, can you help me get an extension for the bees to move them? I mean, I'm just asking for a few more weeks. They're not coming out of their hive right now anyway. They're cloistered in. But there's a lot of things that need to be done to move them. I need to find land. And I'll talk to you definitely, making sure that it's appropriate land. Is that my 5 minutes? And then I have to find somebody who physically pick these things up and move them in a truck and all that. And it's just, it's too much to do in 2 weeks.
Now, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but the ordinance is the ordinance, and complying with the ordinance mean that you comply with it. It means that if you're doing something that's in violation of the local code, we can't give you an extension to keep violating it for 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, we have to treat everybody the same. And I understand the situation that you're in. I understand that it's some people that are pretty close to you that's allergic to bee stings, which is creating this problem.
So that's not a known fact. Nor
Well,
would
they're
I-
supposed to be allergic to bee stings, okay? And it's up to us as a county to make sure that they are in an appropriately zoned spot within the county. And so, from what I understand, they're not in an appropriately zoned spot for the county. That's probably the reason why you got a letter saying that you have to move your bees. And I don't see how we can, at least I guess, probably us consensus of a board or something like that, we couldn't, unless our attorney says, okay, because of these extenuating circumstances, you know, maybe, you know, be 3 weeks before we go after you or something.
Does that have to be flying bees?
I think it's bees. I mean, I don't know where you
These bees are not flying, they won't be flying for 3 months, 4 months.
They're not out.
But I think they started working on this, what, 2 or 3 months ago?
I believe when I talked with staff, it was August, that they, or July.
We-
I think
we
that
met-
this issue started being raised.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about what's what.
Yeah, but they, I guess they, I don't.
Dormant bees are.
They dormant at this particular point, I
Yes,
guess.
sir. And also, the neighbor that raised the concern initially has no idea what he was stung by years ago and doesn't know if it would in fact cause a problem. So it's an unfounded fear. And I understand we're willing to, I want to move the bees. I just need a little time to find property, people to physically move them, a truck. Like I, right now, need to be writing a paper for my examinations.
But
I mean,
I
this is-
understand the unfounded fear, but I know at least 2 people that don't go anywhere without a bee sting kit, because if they get stung, if you don't get them to a hospital, they get that, whatever it is.
Anaphylactic shock, I think
I mean,
it's
it will wipe them out. Yeah.
And my neighbor does not have one, nor has he made any efforts to get one. So that also makes me think it's, you know, we are going to move the bees. It's just, I'm just asking for a little time, just because of the extenuating circumstances that we're in with the holidays and needing to find.
Okay. Okay,
able.
let me see, get some advice from over here on the corner. The circumstances are a little different. They're not flying, they're dormant.
What I would suggest is that she contact the zoning administrator who's been empowered by this board and state law to enforce the zoning ordinance, and talk with her and maybe come up with some reasonable extension of time. Generally, we work with people if they're working towards solving the issue. But it's my understanding she has not contacted her or called her since the letter's gone out. So that's what we would suggest. She called today tomorrow, and I'm sure she'll work with you in some reasonable period of time to get it fixed.
I really appreciate the opportunity to bring this up. I'm very passionate about bees in general. I think they're amazing spiritual creatures, and so thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is anyone else out there like to address the board tonight before we? Okay, here comes this lady's coming forward. Yeah. Please come forward and state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes, and direct all your comments to the board, please.
I'm Margaret Smith, and I live 4425 Old Brook Road in Reiner. And the subject that I am addressing is also agriculture. Over a year ago, you all you joined with Giles and Pulaski counties to form a tri-county consortium, I think is the word that's kind of batted around right now, to come up with a strategic plan for agriculture and agritourism in particular. And I have been on a steering committee as a producer, and right now we live on a farm out in Reiner, and we have a few cattle. Maybe one other producer has been there except for the grape growers, and I think that this has been two grants that have been awarded the counties, and you all have contributed, I think, $6,000 or $7,000 each county or something. One is a community block grant, which focuses on low-income jobs, and the other one is a VDAX grant for agritourism. And the two together have caused a bit of a confusion. It's been difficult to mesh those two. And so I think the management team consists of about maybe 4 from Giles and 2 from each of the other counties. They have wrestled with it, and finally we ended up with getting a consultant, Matson. You may be familiar with him, down in South Carolina. And on December the 18th at 9 a.m., that's this Thursday, the consultants are going to present a strategic plan. And there is a mission statement in that strategic plan that caused me to have a bit of a, how shall I put this? I became confused, and I did talk to our representative, the tourism director, and she did report that to the Planning District Commission that's kind of coordinating some of this. But I think it might help if we could get from you all, and this is initiative I'm just taking, I wrote this up, I didn't even have time to type it, and I wonder if you could think about what you're looking for when you want to, what you're looking for when you're wanting to support agritourism and agriculture in general. For instance, do you support the ventures that create lots of jobs? Is that kind of what you had in mind, to generate more jobs? If so, would you be happier with lots of low-paying jobs, or with just a few high-paying ones as a result of some initiatives that the consultants are suggesting, or just jobs in general? Would that be better, but better than minimum wage jobs, but maybe not quite as many? Would you support more ventures that generate lots of tax dollars? Is that what you're looking for? But would provide high income for a few and some minimum wage jobs, such as lodging and high-end restaurants and that sort of thing. Because this is kind of where, the way I'm interpreting this plan, this is kind of where we're struggling with. Ventures that take tax dollars away from the county. There's also something in there that could do that. Or ventures that bring more visitors from outside the area by providing support for a variety of producers, or only a targeted few, which could be in the mission statement. I'm going to read it in a minute and we'll give you a copy. And I hope you will carefully read this mission statement and be sure it represents what you want accomplished with these taxpayers' dollars, because I know these people really want to do this. They want to, do what the counties want them to do. If you have concerns, it will be necessary to voice them to the county's representative on the management team. I think that she might very well appreciate such a appreciate some comments. The following is the mission statement, and it might be a little harder to remember it, so I'm going to give you copies. A strategic plan that helps the Tri-County area. May I please finish that? Tri-County, no?
Yes.
Okay. It's short. A strategic plan that helps the Tri-County area focus on agricultural development, incorporating the needs of traditional commodity-based farming, such as beef cattle and forestry, with emerging new agricultural opportunities, such as agritourism, grapes and wineries, and value-added production and marketing. This plan will combine the skills and resources of the public sector with the realities and needs of the farming.
I thought you said you was going to give us a copy of it or something like this.
Yeah.
Okay, because your 5 minutes was up when that people.
I thought you said I could go on. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am.
I beg your
I thought you was going to finish a statement. I was going to let you finish a statement, but it seemed like you was it was still,
You get, I read that.
yes, ma'am.
I ain't gonna give a call.
And thank you. Is it anyone else in the, would like to address the board? Well, I guess we don't wear everybody else out. Ain't nobody left out there but the press, so. Let me right up and see where we at. Okay, public addresses, will close the public address session at this time. And addendum.
We do have a couple of addendum. We have an action item that resulted from the closed meeting. Mr. Attorney, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Find that. And they have that in their packet under, oops, trying to find it. Have you got it?
It's a closed meeting.
Yeah,
It's in the closed meeting. Tab, it's a tab in closed meeting, all right?
Yeah, should be the last tab in that.
Yeah, I think
It's a resolution of the Board of Supervisors agreeing to undertake a non-binding moral obligation for the Economic Development Authority of Montgomery County, Virginia, and that's, the EDA is seeking financing to upfit the Technology Manufacturing Building, which is owned by the EDA, and they run it on behalf of the county and this board. And they're looking to, they're seeking a loan in the amount not to exceed of $1.1 million to upfit that building. And as part of the financing, Bank of Floyd is asking that the board provide a moral obligation, meaning it's not a legal obligation, it's not legal debt of the county. However, they ask that you, in a moral fashion, stand behind the debt of the EDA, and if the EDA is unable to pay that note, the board would agree to step in and pay that. And so the resolution states that, and then it also authorizes the board to enter into an agreement with the EDA about how the mechanism would work in providing that type of financial support.
Yeah, I guess a motion, put it on for new business, I guess. Yes, sir.
New business item.
Yeah, new business.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to put this item on as a new business item.
And Mr. Chair, there was one other item resulting from the public hearing related to the special use permit for Bar and Burdette. I believe there was discussion to add that.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Chris.
For action as well.
So we'll need a,
So moved.
Second.
okay. Now, we had two motions and 2 seconds to put it on as, we had Matt's for one, and then the second one was Chris's. So we'll take the first one first, Matt and Mary as a second. Will the clerk please call a roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And your request,
But it was Mary's motion and my
Yeah.
second.
yeah, right.
Okay, yes, but.
Your motion second. Adding that on as, would the clerk please call a roll for that? We're going to add 2 to the addendum.
Well, I thought we was going to combine them.
Y'all combine it?
Addendum.
Well, we had one motion here and one motion here. I'm happy to do them either
We'll do
way.
whatever
Let's
you
combine
want.
them. Is everybody good with combined?
Sure.
Okay, good enough. Huh?
I
Mark, are
guess
we
we're going
okay
to need
to
to
do
vote
that?
on it again to add it.
All right, yeah, are you talking about the,
Do we need, can we just vote once to put both items on?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Make it simple.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Next item is consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. With the, any questions whatsoever? No comments? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Old business, subject A, ordinance amending chapter 3 entitled Animals of the Code of Montgomery County. I guess this is for action. We've talked about this before.
Yeah,
And
we had a public hearing on this sometime before.
Yeah.
It really should.
it's so long, got to roll my pad down to action, I guess.
Basically, it's an ordinance amending the county's current dangerous dog and vicious dog ordinance. A lot of the changes and all these changes are based on the enabling legislation that authorizes that under state law. That law changed, and so we are changing ours to remain consistent with that. What the main change is that it broke out dangerous and vicious and made them separate. They're already separate by definition, but they weren't separate within the way the ordinance was structured and the way the enabling legislation was structured. And so, for some reason, the state wanted to separate it more clearly, and we've done that in our ordinance. The other change is that our fees are going up a little bit. They haven't gone up since this ordinance first came into effect. I believe it was maybe 10 years ago. But right now, I think we charge $50 for if what happens is we go to court and a dog's deemed dangerous, then they have to comply with the dangerous dog ordinance requirements. One of those ordinances is they have to get a dangerous dog certificate. Right now, we're only charging $50. It's not really coming close to covering our costs, and so the state law changed to allow localities now to go from $50 to $150, and that's a one-time fee. And then they also now put in a fee of $85, and that's because each year they have to re-up the dog as a dangerous dog so long as it remains in the county. And the reason they do that is that way the animal control officers can check up on these dogs, making sure that they're being properly kenneled and they're complying with all the ordinance requirements that are required in order to keep the public safe from a dog that's deemed dangerous. I recommend that you approve these, and like I said, they're changes that the state law requires you to make, except for the fees. You could keep the fees lower, but the fees aren't really covering our costs. They're coming close to it.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gaylor?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Roanoke?
Aye.
7 ayes.
New business, subject A, Town of Christiansburg request for easement. Resolution approving the conveyance of a variable with permanent pedestrian access easement to the Town of Christiansburg on county-owned property.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject B, lease agreement comprehensive fire training center.
So moved.
It depends on how short your comments are before we, come on.
I have no
You have no comments? I'm glad to hear it. Anybody have any questions?
You don't have a burning desire to speak?
Burning.
Yeah, I mean, it's fire training. I mean,
It is.
Okay, we had a motion and
Second?
a second. Any discussion or any questions for Neil?
Is anything you can say to enlighten us on anything?
I can tell you all about it. I can even show you a little diagram. Town of Blacksburg, or the Blacksburg Fire Department Foundation got this property. They've done a lot of work on it already. Bill Yeager went down. We improved the building, which will be a classroom. We brought a container in, built a maze in it, constructed a telephone pole ladder training tower.
Neil, where's the property? Talk about where the property is.
Oh, property is the old Mary Mack
sewer place.
Sewer plant.
Yeah.
And so Blacksburg Fire Department has done a great deal of work there. Christiansburg Fire Department's been involved in some of the additions. We applied for a fire training grant before and were successful, but found out as we worked into it, one of the things was a lease agreement that was not secured prior to the grant. We're doing it ahead of time. As soon as I get this approved and I'll push the button, submit the grant, and we've had some assurances with the fire board who met here last month that it should be positively looked at. We're excited. The build out in total, big classroom, the ladder training, the maze class, or maze building, the burn building itself, then the parking lot will afford us opportunity to do extrication there.
Questions? Well, then I'll say to you that on behalf of this board, we appreciate all that our volunteers do. We know that they risk their lives every time they respond to a call, and a lot of times we don't, what you say thank you, but thank you are on our minds, and we fully, support your efforts and things.
Thank you very much.
We had a motion and a vote. A motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll for some more questions?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject C, resolution of support proposed design for the relocation of the Interstate 81 exit 118 Fallen Branch Park and Ride facility.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and I think this is one that's been beaten to death. It ought to be real tender by now. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Don't mean to get off the subject, but I was over at the Fallen Branch School, and then the school presented some plaques to the VDOT people over there, and it was pretty nice. Subject D, well, okay, we'll get on down to the other two things. Resolution of recognition of Auburn High School girls volleyball team as state champions. Motion?
Second.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject E, resolution of recognition, Matt Hagan, Funny Car World Champs. Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And Mr.
Two
Chair,
items.
Mr. Hagan, I believe, is going to try to be with us in January. Is that?
That's, I'll try to give him, he has got a big deal coming up.
Friday.
Friday the 19th over at the place.
Yeah,
You want to see if we can?
but I don't guess that would be appropriate. That wouldn't get everybody in. I mean, that would be a good way of getting him around his schedule.
No, he'll be there. You know he's going to be there.
Yeah, he will definitely be there, and so will the other 10,000 people.
Yeah, trying to get in. Some people have been trying to get in early. We have two items to add on the new business.
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay.
First one was the item related to, the closed session item related to the moral obligation for the EDA.
Need a motion. Second. Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And the second item?
Was the rezoning request from Miss Burdette and her husband, Mr. Barr.
Yeah, it's actually a special use.
Special use.
It's an
I'm
amendment
sorry,
to
thank you.
Existing special use permit.
Sorry, special use permit.
Need a
So moved.
have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Man, we down to the real tough reports now, the county attorney's report. And don't try not to be too long.
I'm talking up, Mr. Chair.
Okay, county administrator's report.
Mr. Chair, just a couple of things. I wanted to mention, again, it was mentioned earlier in the meeting that there will be an open house regarding the Mountain Valley Pipeline natural gas project this Thursday, which is the 18th, beginning at 5:30 at the Days Inn in Blacksburg. This is not a meeting that is coordinated or run by the county. This is a meeting that is an open house that is being put on by the pipeline folks. It's a requirement of the FERC process. I do plan to attend and just talk to folks, but again, I think we've seen an email or two, there was some confusion about would people be allowed to ask questions and all. It's an open house that the pipeline folks will be running on Thursday evening. But that being said, they should have some hopefully helpful information for residents and interested parties. But that's this Thursday, beginning at 5:30 at the Days Inn in Blacksburg. The only other thing I wanted to mention to the board is, and I should have thought about it when she was here earlier, we were recognizing our retirees, Karen Edmonds, who has been the county's Human Resource Director for a number of years, is retiring at the end of this month. There's a reception that's going to be held for Karen this Friday from 1:30 to 3 o'clock in one of the multi-purpose rooms. I can't remember if it's upstairs or downstairs, but if you have an opportunity between 1:30 and 3 on Friday and want to stop by, Karen will be here through the end of the month, but we're doing a little reception for her this Friday from 1:30 to 3. And we're in the process of setting up interviews to replace Karen. Won't be able to replace her, but we'll find someone else to serve as HR director, and hopefully we'll be moving forward with that in the days ahead. And Mr. Chair, that's all I've got tonight.
Yeah, you want to mention employee luncheon?
Employee luncheon for Christmas is this Wednesday. I believe it's 11:30. Does that sound right, guys? I think it's 11:30 to 1:30 this Wednesday for our employees, and would certainly like to see as many of you that can make it there as well.
Hey guys, it's a meal.
We get it for 2 hours.
Get to eat for 2 hours, yeah. No, well, okay.
That's all I have.
Supervisor Gable.
First of all, just want to take this opportunity to wish you all happy holidays. Second is that I attended the EDC's annual luncheon. So last week before, something like that, 2 weeks ago. And John Overton from Christiansburg is going to be the new chair of the EDC, and he was grateful that he took that on. I had a question for the county administrator. Where do we stand for the all-day work session on the 6th? Was it the 16th
of January?
Are we still on?
We're still on for that. You'll be getting an email from me in the next day or two. We've sketched out a rough agenda, but I want to make sure that I'm not leaving anything off that you guys want to talk about. Okay. So you'll be getting an email before the week's out about making sure that we've got all that covered. But it'll be Friday, January 16th, beginning at 8:30. In all likelihood, it'll be here, certainly open to other venues. The county offices will be closed that day, so it should be fairly quiet if we decide to use this building for that. Okay. So.
No. Okay, I can't go.
Oh. One of the things that...
I've got a product doctor at the VA.
Oops, okay.
I'll say it again.
Okay. One of the things that I was wondering if we might add to the agenda, just kind of based on some of the discussion that Mary and I brought up, is just kind of cementing policies for how board meetings are being run. Another issue is not only for the addendums and things like that, but also for public comment, is that we seem to be a little flexible on how we run public comment sometimes, and that some people we give extra time to and we answer questions, and other people we kind of cut off. And I would rather be kind of more equitable in how we decide to do that. If we want to respond, that's fine. If we don't want to respond, that's fine. But I'd like to see something a little more formalized in that. Another thing I wanted to, I'm sure you all saw the email from Penny, is that the next dialogue on race will be the day after our retreat on the 17th in this building from 10 to 2. I'm sure there'll be more information about that forthcoming. And then finally, you probably all saw the email that I sent you, and I would just like to bring it back to your attention, is that spurred by an article I read in the Roanoke Times, which I think was an AP article about state employees in Virginia, a shocking percentage of them were below the federal poverty line, just based on state wages. We're actually, thanks to the information that Carol got together, not too bad, but we do have 7 employees who do fall below the 100% of the poverty line if they are in a family of 4. And I would like to see us at some point in the near future talk about if there's a way to raise that minimum above that, because if we do have an employee here who does have a family, then we should be paying them below the federal poverty line. And that's, we're not talking about a huge amount of people, but maybe we could just get a little bit of information about what cost would be to just raise that minimum salary, and maybe have it a stated policy of this board to make sure that our wages will never fall below the federal poverty line. So, and that's all I have.
Okay, Supervisor King.
I don't have much, but I would like to bring up, me and Chris went to Christiansburg Rescue's award banquet, and it was good, and me and Craig went to Ryan Rescue, and there was a lot of people out there.
It was a crowd.
I asked Christiansburg to send me some figures, but they haven't sent them yet, but I'd like to read some that Ryan sent me today. They had 471 calls to date. They only had 7 calls they had to turn over to another agency. They did 23 mutual aid calls. All right, the active member of the year is Nick Colson. Life member of the year is Kelly Walters. Rookie of the year is Dustin A.G. Junior member of the year is Nick Colson Jr. Active member of most calls is Logan Underwood. He run 198 calls out of 471. Life member of most calls is Kelly Walters. He run 18. And I just want to say, myself, as a volunteer, I appreciate everything that all of them does. I really do. And I called Alston and Shawsville because their get-together was Saturday night St. but I already committed to Christiansburg. And I apologize to them for not being able to make theirs. That's all I had. Oh, one more thing. This up here at the Old Thompson Chrysler, I went up and visited that. And Bobby has done a wonderful job up there. I mean, he's fixed the siding, and I mean, he's done really good. And like Miss Jenkins said, they're going to have only one entrance in and out on Route 11. So I think it'd be a good asset to that area to get the traffic off of Route 8. If any of you been up through there when in the evening time or something, there's a lot of people trying to get rid of stuff for the weekend, I mean, it's backed up. That's all I got.
I think I'll do that on the road.
Supervisor Craig.
Oh, yeah, I've got a couple of things. They'll be very small. Went to the Shawsville Rueton. No, whoa. I did go to Shawsville Rueton, but it had nothing to do with what I was going to tell you. I was getting ready to eat again. It was good. Shawsville Rescue Squad over at the farmhouse, and as usual, that was a nice place to go. And they just ordered thinner steak. But anyhow, they are very concerned. By the way, I don't know how you got Kelly Walters at both places, but he was over there too.
He likes to eat too.
Yeah, he does like to eat.
But Shawsville Rescue. Boy, and I get caught with can't say nothing. The Shawsville Rescue Squad own their own buildings.
Right.
They're about to fall down. Not only are the buildings in pretty rough shape, the upstairs where the men sleep that are on call are not nice. I'll just leave it at that. They wanted me to see if the board would give them some help in either doing one of 2 or 3 different options. One, take the buildings, they'll sign them over. They've never, in 50, 60 years, they've never offered to sign them over. They're always so proud that they had their own building, but it's beyond the money that they take in is not enough to keep up. And they're just in dire need of some help. So that's one thing that I wanted. The other, and I don't know what the other one was. So that's
If you think about it, we'll come back to you.
okay, that's the biggie, but that concerns me.
Well, what happened is that the board passed a resolution to formulate a study group for the Roanoke area. And Captain Akers had talked to me, like, I guess a couple months afterwards, about having a study group for their area. The problem is that I think we own the facility out in Roanoke, but we don't own that facility. So in working, we're trying to figure out how we can put a study group together, but that's the first time I've heard that they would sign the buildings, the property over to us. And so that's going to give us another avenue, especially for our legal people, Mr. Meadows, to look at how we can look at helping him down there with the blessings of this board, Supervisor Perkins.
Okay, not much to tell you about. I know that Ms. Edmonds and I will be going to the Fairview Home meeting on Thursday. I do want to say, and I will have social services meeting on Wednesday here at the Government Center before the luncheon for employees. But I do want to say this is my very favorite time of the year, and I want to wish all of you very happy days and enjoy family and any trips that you might be taking. I do want you to want to tell you far enough ahead of time. It just occurred to me that I was thinking the retreat was going to be on Saturday, and then I got back to you. You got back to us and said it was going to be on the 16th. And until I looked at my husband's appointments at the Veterans Administration, he has one with the doctor there at 10 o'clock on the 16th. So I will not be here the entire morning. I maybe for a little while and then go pick him up, but I dare say that won't happen since I need to get him ready for it. And then I'm not sure, last time we were there for a couple hours, but this is the second appointment with the gerontologist and urologist, so I can't miss it. And I regret that sincerely, but if you all take copious notes and then share those with me,
What was that word again?
I don't know, copious, somebody told me that.
You should look it up on your computer.
If you all would take really good, lots of notes, then I'll be able to know what's going on. But I thank you very much for that, and thanks, Mr. Creed. We'll see you. Thank you. All righty. That's it.
Supervisor Biggs.
I also want to wish everyone a happy holiday season, including, staff and volunteers and citizens and board members, and just be really safe if you're going anywhere. And Mr. Chair, can you give my regards to the employees at the luncheon, because I will be working that day. I won't be able to attend the luncheon. I'll be with my children
Yes, sir.
lunching in
I
a
look
way.
like I need a meal. I'm tired of eating, too.
Okay, I just have a few things, and I'll try to go in the order that I attended. All right, December 4th, I attended the New River Community Services Board meeting. Just want you to know for your information that Rosemary Sullivan will continue as the interim director for the foreseeable future, and that seems to be working really well. And then just so that the citizens out there know, we did hold our legislative dinner with 3 of our legislators on Monday, December 8th, and the ones that were able to attend were Senator Edwards, Senator Smith, and Delegate Rush. And we did make it clear to them that we needed any help that they could give us in trying to proceed with a timely budget, trying to be held harmless from state cuts if at all possible, and tried to advocate for our county and our citizens. Then at our, I guess I have to check with Bill for the name of this because I was so used to calling it the Town County Lake. But the Greater Montgomery Liaison Group breakfast, we had Delegate Yost as the guest. It was Blacksburg's turn to have the event, and Delegate Yost was the guest asked by the mayor to come. So it did provide the county with a time to sort of get our point across to, Mr. Yost also, to Delegate Yost. So we covered everybody, I guess, in 1 week doing that. And then, let me see, then we had the, and that was basically the whole meeting, and everyone wished everyone happy holidays, but just gave Delegate Yost a chance to talk a little bit about what he thought would be happening at the state level, which no one seems to know, and, just sort of back and forth like that. Then we had our county school liaison meeting on the December 11th, Thursday, and that involved a discussion where Mr. Jones got to call in from California, and we wished him well in his new job, and we're sorry to see him leave. We're not sure when he's officially resigning from the school board. But the items that we discussed were the same items that we always discuss: surplus properties update, shared services update, and on that it seems that we are making progress with accounting, payroll, and accounts payable, combining those functions together. And then we talked about the budget outlook, and we were able to share with Mr. Jones sort of what we had heard from the legislators that we had talked to. And of course, Ms. Blackburn had been at the meeting that Delegate Yost was at, so we discussed that, and then decided that the next meeting, of course, should be, in 2015. Did I leave anything out on that? Does that cover everything that we did? Okay, so that was just sort of the update for everyone. And that's it.
Supervisor Tuck.
A few things. The Planning Commission, we had the request that withdrawn regarding the storage contractor storage yard. There were probably 50 people there. Just
those are the ones that could make it. There was plenty more.
And there was a lot of folks. There was a petition signed. I know it's been withdrawn. I know it did not come before us. My understanding, it will come back. But there was a tremendous amount of opposition. It's probably the most well-attended planning commission I've been at in the last 3 years that I've been serving on the board. Todd mentioned that he and I got to attend the Christiansburg Rescue Squad dinner. And we were there, and this lady, everybody's getting ready to leave. Everybody, all the awards have been given up, and this lady just raised her hand and asked to speak. And she said that she just was there to thank the Christiansburg Rescue Squad. And she mentioned that her father has dementia and continually kept calling the rescue squad with various emergencies. And they would come out and try to address them. And over and over and over again. And one young lady who came out there just told him and patted his hand and says, if you need us again, you just call. And you talk about that kind of commitment and the impact that those volunteers have on everyone's lives. And it was a very touching moment there. And so with that being said, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and look forward to working with you next year.
Okay, thank you all. A couple of things. If you recall, I guess, a meeting ago, we had a gentleman that come before the board, Scott Noonkeister was his name, and he requested us to, wanted to rename a section of Prices Fork Road from, I guess, Prices Fork to over to Christie's store, like in honor of his father, James Valley Noonkeister. And we listened to him, and I asked this under my board report: is it something this board, consensus of this board, should be looked at further, or we let it die at this particular place? Either way, if it's a consensus that we look at some way further, we have a thumbs up. If we do nothing and let it die, when I say let it die, I often think of how much rural roads we have up here, how many former boards of supervisors that we have. We probably could rename the whole county after a supervisor, a section of the road. And I think former, on a part of that same road that he had requested being named after his father. You described the road a little bit, and Ira Long lives out there. Is Ira not worthy of us naming? What I'm saying is that I believe, my own personal opinion, we open the door and the door is wide open. And so whatever the consensus of this board, if you think it ought to be looked at some more or whatever, give a thumbs up. If not, we just let it die by the wayside, so it would be this board's decision and not my decision.
I guess I would want to see a lot of community support before I saw something like that. And I appreciate Mr. Noonkeister. He loves his father. His father did serve on the board for a period of time. But I would like to see it, before I would want to move forward, I would want to see a community coming forward and saying this is something important to all of us.
And if I know the people in the area out there that if this board was to attempt to change the name, you talk about a lot of people coming to planning commission. There's so many prices out there, and they're, I mean, it'd just be, that's just like changing the name of McCoy to something else. Well, my God, it'd be mutiny on the ship. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be just those. The Longs who are related to the Prices, the Olingers are related to the Prices. All those German names
be like a
are all related to the Price. It would be.
That's what.
Do I see any consensus on this board that we do anything with that request? Seeing none, so I guess it'll die, and I guess we probably can send Scott a letter that it was no interest on the board to move his request further.
But why? Say why.
Yeah.
Many of the things you said.
I wouldn't mind putting in there that we would want to, before we would ever change the name of a road,
it'd be significant
community support or something like that.
Well, maybe there would be a way, if they wanted to do something in that community, like in the Village of Prices Fork, or something they could do to honor him in a different way or something. But I think when you go into public service, you don't really go into it to have something named after you. You're going into it for the good of the public. And so I think you have a valid point in saying, like, if we started doing that, we'd have to sort of consider any request then that would come forward. And there's been so many people involved with the growth and history of this county, it would sort of open the door for that. So maybe there would be a better way to honor him.
Well, we had talked sometime about, I think Chris had brought up pictures, but I more or less, when we were discussing this thing, is that you've seen these plaques that you can get, and you put a little metal plate on the end of them, like I think in some fire departments, like Fireman of the Year.
Yeah.
And so that would be more of an appropriate thing to place here in the lobby or somewhere, something big, where each time somebody would go off, you put their name, serving for this time, and it's just a little small thing that you get. That would be.
I think that would be totally appropriate, and that's something Doug Mars brought up you know, there was, that the supervisors really aren't honored in any way for their service as far as a public, you know, like plaque thing like you're talking about, because he was thinking about how the judges put their stuff up in the courthouse. And, you know, he was like, well, it'd be nice just to have like a little plaque, because it would go back, I mean, when you start looking at the history of this county, but.
You know, we just did Judge Frith's portrait, Judge Craigle's portrait at the courthouse, and that was done Friday. And the bar paid for the framing, but the judges paid for the portraits. And if you know, we have a lot of bare walls. If the families, to me, wanted to come forward with a portrait, let's say Doug Mars or me for Uncle Ira, then that's something I wouldn't mind entertaining and saying Ira Long from, you know, 1978 through 1996 or whatever it was. That I don't have a problem with, but naming a road where somebody might have to change their mailing address, their stationery. If I'm a business, I may have 1,000 envelopes that I'm going to be changing, and I'm not going to appreciate that. The phone book changes, those type of things. And so unless there was a significant amount of community support, I wouldn't change it. But putting up his picture and years of service would be fine with me.
Yes, would be quite enough.
Plaques are good,
Okay.
but they're little.
I think a small plaque.
Yeah, really little.
If you don't, you know, thing of it is, if you don't want to cover all the walls up with that, you could have something at the top and then have underneath of it when they served, you know, with on the chain and get.
Well, we talked about that a while back, and there may be some opportunities for that. Absolutely.
Okay. Another thing too, you all know, some of you knew Ronnie Martin, who serves as the executive director of the New River Valley Working and Wheel Board, but he's retiring effective January 31st.
Wow.
Yeah, but he's still going to be working part-time with us. He's 31st. He has to be off in the RS position 30 days and start back part-time. But working with our executive board there, Marty Holliday will become the executive director effective February 1. And so she's been sort of like the backbone and so forth. Another thing too, we had the skill gaps analysis for the 13 county participation there, and we took, I guess, federal money to pay for it. But to continue to have access to that information, and they can give it to you county by county, present it to companies coming in and so forth. But they're probably going to ask each of the 13 localities to probably contribute about $400 a year, and plus the planning districts from Mount Rogers and New River will kick in about $4. So we'd still have access to the information, and it's updated through Virginia Tech. And so that $400 request will be
charging us?
Huh?
Is it Tech that would be charging us?
Yeah, it's through the economic, where Patrick and God, I can't think of the girl's name, Whitney was from. They contracted with Workforce Development.
Yeah.
And then to have access to the information that it's a fee.
Okay. I'm just surprised Tech is, they're a land grant institution. They should be helping out their local localities.
Well, they are from the little bit of fee that they're charging us. Yeah. Other than that, I wish you all the very best during the holiday season, and I hope all of y'all been good, so Santa Claus will come and visit you. And I'm trying to look at them other notes, and when we do get to it, and when we find out about Wendell, and that's probably somewhere next month, we need to get a resolution together recognizing his service to the county. And did you remember what you... Okay. We'll adjourn. And I'm going to pull him out.